to the Book Wyrm Club, where Alex and I choose books and we talk about them.
For better or for worse, we do talk
we read them. And I'm Kat of Kat's Novel Adventures, and this is Alex
from Frank Fiction.
Hello. How you doing, Alex?
I'm doing much better now that I'm talking to you, Kat. How are you?
Same.
Oh,
now we're like in our little bubble.
Yes. Yeah, you missed earlier when Kat made us both very big and we looked like we were like this close to each other, and it kind of
Yes. Be careful, I could do it again.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
It would be like Kat and Alex gone wild.
And hello to everybody else.
Yes, hello.
See y'all rolling in.
Yes, we're very, very excited about, we're always excited.
Yep.
You notice that whenever we talk about our books, we're like very excited about the book we're going to talk about currently at the time. And we are talking about The Woman in the Library by Sulari Gentill. Is it Gentill?
I was saying Gentile, but I think it is probably Gentill.
Gentill. Yes. I did not look up a pronunciation, listen to pronunciation. So I'm so sorry, Miss Sulari Gentill. But yes, this is a murder mystery thriller. Is how I would classify it.
Yeah? I would say so. Yeah.
Okay, so we will be talking about The Woman in the Library. And we will be having spoilers. So if you have not finished the book, you might want to like pause at that point and then come back and hear our thoughts afterwards. But we have quite a few questions that we want to discuss. And there is one character in particular that I'm really eager to talk to Alex about. And for everyone in the chat to weigh in on their thoughts as well.
Yeah, I think you all know who we're talking about.
Yes.
Leo. Yeah. I was literally texting Kat midway through the book, and she had already finished it. And I was like, he better frickin' be the murderer. I hate him. I was ready. I was so ready.
Yep. Yes. It was a good time for me, and we will tell you what we think, what our ratings and all that good stuff. But we want to welcome everyone who is joining us. And Jamie's in the house. Hello, Jamie. How are you today? And Telkana. Hello. I recognize you from Alex's channel. Welcome. Heidi's here. I'm super curious about this book because Kat called it weird.
Did you call it
weird? I don't know if I called The Woman in the Library weird. Maybe she's confusing that with Welcome to Night Vale. Welcome to Night Vale is very, very weird.
I probably would like that then.
You would like it.
Okay.
Because I think you would like the humor in it. And it's just, it really is. It's wacky, wild, weird, but I think it's wonderful. And I think people who listen to the podcast and like the podcast will appreciate the novel more. So maybe listen to an episode of Welcome to Night Vale first. So I don't know. Woman in the Library. I don't remember saying that, but maybe I did, Heidi. I don't know.
Hi, Stina.
Sometimes I say a lot of things I don't know. Hello, Stina. Welcome. And Heidi, it is definitely weird. There is a weird aspect to it.
Yeah. Some of it is.
Some of it. And that character. Leo adds to the weirdness, I will tell you. That is true. And Jamie says, agreed. But not the weirdest thing I've read this month. Yeah. Oh, no. The weirdest thing I've read this month so far has been Welcome to Night Vale, for sure. Well, now you have to tell us that title, Stina. The Last House on Needless Street. That's a fantastic book, honestly. It is weird, but I absolutely loved it. I loved it. On the audiobook, it sounded like Gentle. Oh, okay. Well,
thank you.
And not the Southern Gentile.
Yeah, that was me. I don't know why I think it's.
Hello, Eleanor. How are you? I'm so glad that you're here. Hi, I DNF'd to chapter 8. I'm mostly just here for the spoilers. LOL. Welcome, Zach. And hello, Angela. Are you talking about Leo Cray?
Yes, we are. Yes. Speaking of which, put in the chat a heart if you read and finished the book, a skull if you read the, or how do we normally do
I
this? A
think the
heart,
skull was DNF, huh?
yeah, a skull if you DNF'd it. Oh, and a black heart if you just didn't read it at all. So red heart if you finished it,
Yes,
skull
I
if you
should have
DNF'd,
thought of
black
that.
heart if you, that's okay, a black heart if you didn't read it at all.
Yeah, so we already know that Zach DNF'd. I can't even write the titles of the top 3 weirdest things I read this month. Kat would get mad at me.
Oh, it means they're
Yes,
so
please, no profanity, please. PG-13. Okay, so we have some red hearts. Whoops. It's showing black on StreamYard, but it's showing white.
Oh,
Hello,
it's the
Susan.
background. The background's black. That's
Oh, maybe that's why. Okay.
yeah.
Stina also didn't
Great.
finish it. Black is didn't read it. Okay, so Stina and Susan didn't read it. Jellicle's here. Hey, Jellicle. Alexis had lots of fun stuff in the Discord. I was like, almost every chapter she was like giving her thoughts and stuff. It was so fun to read. And Angela and Zach with his skull, and then Eleanor. Good. And hey, Liz, woot woot. Hiya, but excited to hear how it ended. So, you must not have finished it. Is that what you're saying? Is that supposed to be a skull?
No.
Oh, yeah, skull.
Yeah.
Oh,
And also,
DNF'd. Oh, Liz DNF'd it. Oh no. Weirdest book this month was You Weren't Meant to Be Human. Ooh.
and Stina and Susan both said that they did read it. Their heart is supposed to be red. So for whatever reason, their icon's different. So
Oh,
we got
okay. That
you
is
read
odd.
it.
Okay, well, I'm glad mine shows red in the chat. I read it. Okay, good. And Susan said, "No, I finished it. Should have been a red heart." Okay, well, that's weird. That's weird how I guess it depends on if it's coming from desktop or
Probably
phone or whatever. I don't know. And Heidi did not read it. Yes, Heidi's just here to find out what it's all about.
it's for the
Okay.
lull.
So, do you want to go ahead and give a synopsis first, a little summary of it first before we tell what our ratings are?
Absolutely. So, very briefly, The Woman in the Library is the story of 4 strangers who find themselves at the Boston Public Library at the same time in the reading room when they hear a woman scream. And it kind of gives them a reason to start talking to each other, and they strike up a friendship, and that carries on throughout the course of the novel. And they later discover that it wasn't a prank as they initially thought, but a woman had actually been murdered. And it turns out that one of the 4 people is the murderer.
I love that. I love that line. I thought that was very clever. And that it answers one of the questions that you had for us today. So, what did you rate it, Alex?
I gave it 3.5 stars.
Wow. Okay. Very nice.
So I want to give a caveat, and people who've heard me talk about like mysteries before know this. I have a really hard time ever giving a mystery a 5-star because once I know the mystery, I wouldn't want to reread it. So usually the highest I would give most things would be like a 4, maybe a 4.5 if it was really good. There were some cases in this story where I felt like it fell a little flat, or there were some things I kind of wish had been a little bit different. And so in this case, I give it 3.5, but that's still a solid rating. I mean, that's still where I'm like, it's good.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you would recommend it to someone.
Yeah.
Even if it's 3.5. I mean, I have 3-star books that I would still recommend to somebody. It just is the way it was written or the genre or however, so I don't think that's a bad rating at all. I rated it as a 4.
Okay, so
I mean, it's not an Agatha Christie, kind of thing, but I enjoyed it. And like you said, there were some parts that kind of fell flat, and I think like the ending, even though when we're going to get to this, but I won't say right now, but anyway,
spoilers, no spoilers yet.
I think what it is too, I don't know. I mean, it had elements that are really, really light that I thought were original and fresh. And I applaud the author for, doing it the way that she did, formatted it the way she did. And I don't know if it would necessarily have worked for everybody, the way it's formatted, but
Yeah.
it worked for me, and I was pretty interested enough to keep reading to the end. The
Mhm.
thing is I probably would never read it again,
Right.
but, because now I know what the originality and all that and the killer.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I will say that the formatting is probably one of my favorite parts of this book because it was something that was very different. So then this is still spoiler free, so I feel like I can say this. This is a book where there's a story within a story. So we're actually reading the story that the author in the novel is writing, and she is corresponding with a man named Leo. So she's in Australia writing this novel set in Boston, and he lives in Boston.
Mhm.
And so he's sending her like research about the Boston area to incorporate into her book, and she sends it one chapter at a time. So
Mhm.
I thought that that was really cool because it's like, okay, so we have an in-universe author who's writing this book that we are then reading while also reading the communications that he is writing to her about it because she never responds to him. That was another thing I thought was really good. Is like you never see the communications that she writes back. It's only her book and what he is saying about each
Right,
subsequent chapter.
right.
So that part of it was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, and I felt it was pretty neat how, you learn things along the way from the communication
Mhm.
with Leo that I think, raises some questions and, then is also kind of intriguing. So that's what it kind of makes you think.
Mhm.
I don't know, I just found aspects of it very intriguing.
Mhm.
So please put your rating in and let us know what y'all are teetering on. Sometimes, like, my ratings could sometimes change after a discussion.
Yeah.
Sometimes my ratings change, like if I'm on the fence. But I've been a pretty solid 4 on this one, so I can't imagine that happening. But
I was with
sometimes it
Stina.
happens.
I actually did not rate it until like 3 hours ago, because I wanted to think about it
Yeah.
for a little bit.
Yeah, because sometimes, like, when I'm, writing out my notes or I'm writing a review or thinking about it, I'm like, "Well, I did like that more than I anticipated," or, "You know what? I really didn't like that."
Mhm.
So, it just gives you time to reflect. So, like Stina's saying, "I just finished this afternoon, so I'm not ready to rate it." That's fair, maybe by the end. Telkana said, "I gave it 3.5 stars too." Eleanor said 3.5. Jellicle said, "I gave it a 4. I had a good time with it." Jamie gave it a 3 star. And Stina wants to know, is this heart red? Yes,
It
that is
is.
her beating heart. And Alexa said, 4 for me too. Love the originality, the format, and how atmospheric it was. And yes, if anybody wants to have a good time, I would recommend reading Alexis's all her comments in Discord. It was so fun to read them. And I mean, at the end, I was like, it seems like you really enjoyed this book. Stina said the format was a little hard to get at first in the audiobook. I'm sure
Oh,
that that was possible, especially if you didn't really know what was going on to see it.
yeah.
And that was it's one of the questions that Alex has for us. And I'll explain that when we get to that question. Angela, a solid 3 star. Susan said 3.5. Same Alex. I just rated it about an hour ago. Yeah, so I don't think that's too shabby. I
There's
mean,
not a single 5, which I
yeah,
think is
well, we didn't have any fives. We didn't have
no.
anything below a 3. We did have 2 DNFs from Liz and Zach.
Mhm.
So which is anticipated, which I'm kind of sad for Liz because Liz went to Boston and that was the book that she was going to read. She was going to
Would have
travel
been
to Boston.
atmospheric. Could have gone into the Boston Public Library. That would have been neat.
Right.
Where it
That would
all
have been funny to be reading it at the Boston Public Library, while you were visiting. So, do you want to jump into the questions?
do it. All right,
Okay.
everybody, we're going into spoilers.
Yeah. So let me put the spoilers up because I don't want anyone to come at us. Okay. So, question number 1. How did you feel about Cain, Wit, Marigold, and Freddie. So I'll let you choose who you want to start with, and we'll just talk about each one. And
Okay.
before you start, I just want to say I kind of had actors in my brain, like, celebrity actors in my brain
Oh,
for them.
okay.
I don't know. Okay.
That's
So
fun. I did not do that, but I think that's great. I want to hear who you picked for them. So
I
for
will.
Freddie, I'll start with Freddie because she's our protagonist. She's the one that's narrating everything. So what's fun about Freddie and also interesting about Kane is they're both authors inside the story. So they are also writing their own books. So there's like this whole through line of like writing and coming up with the right plot and how do you get these characters to the end. And I thought that the idea of that was pretty cool because she's trying to write a novel that's in a novel about her experiences about the things that are happening in the novel that we're reading, which
Right.
is kind of funny.
Yeah, so it's like a story within a story within a
Yeah.
story, like
Yeah.
nesting, those nesting
Yes,
dolls?
those Russian nesting dolls. Yes. And so I liked her as a character. I thought that I guess the best way to kind of explain it, and it's something that Leo actually brings up in one of his communications, is she's almost like a blank slate in a way where like we don't get details about her person other than like she has curly hair. And the fact she's
And it's
Australian.
disheveled at one
Yeah.
point?
Yeah, that's really the only thing that we know about her, and so you can almost kind of, like, put yourself in her shoes maybe a little bit easier, and maybe that's why the author did it that way. So
Mhm.
I think she's perfectly fine as a protagonist, and I don't think that she did anything that was overwhelmingly stupid, which is also something I appreciate because there's so many times I get really frustrated in books where I'm like, "That's unrealistic, that would never happen." I didn't feel like necessarily that she ever did something where I was like, "Oh, well, you just want to get killed." Like I didn't feel that way. Um and then Kane was probably my favorite character in this book. I thought he was the most interesting. He's the one that we get the most backstory for. He's the one who, spoilers, ultimately is being framed for a murder, which I thought was a good premise for a book because Leo is so thoroughly convinced that he must be the murderer and that she's going to write that in the end. And I, as the reader, was thoroughly convinced that was not going to be the case because I know how these kinds of books go, right? So
Right.
my excitement for the ending was figuring out how they were going to exonerate him to prove that he wasn't the murderer because I'm like, no, he's a good guy. I like Kane, even though he technically
Even though all the evidence was stacked against him.
yes. And he technically is a murderer. So, for those of you who didn't read the book, the backstory for Kane is that it was going to be sexually assaulted by his stepfather, who was very physically abusive. And it's actually the reason that Kane ran away from home, which will become a part of the novel we'll eventually talk about. He ran away from home when he was a teenager. And when he came back, his stepfather was nice to him for a short time and then was going to assault him. And he ended up stabbing his stepfather in the neck with a knife and killed him. And he went to prison for, it was like
Well,
7 years.
mainly because the stepfather was a decorated cop.
Correct. He was a police officer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people didn't believe that it was self-defense. They thought that Kane was a delinquent juvenile.
Mhm, mhm.
So, their odds really were against him in like every way. And so I kind of honestly, I wanted to root for him. I wanted to believe that he was a good guy because I don't believe that just because somebody goes to prison means that they're a terrible person,
Exactly.
especially if you go to prison in self-defense. And so, yeah, he was great. Marigold, yeah, Marigold drove me absolutely batshit insane, and I hated her, for so much of the book. I hated her up until the point when I realized she wasn't the murderer, and I was like, "Okay, at least she's not the killer, so there's that." But she was a stalker. She was a creep. She was, like, way too overly, like, insert herself into other people's business and their life, and I'm like, if I had met her as a real person, I would never be friends with her. She would make me
Right.
scream, which
Right.
makes sense to me why Leo liked her as a character because I was like, oh yeah, she's like everything you would enjoy.
Of
And then
course.
Wit was it. I realized late in the book, I was like, oh well, it kind of makes sense. Wit's part in the story because he's the one that we know about the least outside of Freddie, who is our protagonist, but we're seeing the story through her eyes. Whit is the one that, outside of him being a wannabe law school failure and has a passion for journalism and is a playboy, we don't know anything about him. So it made sense.
He is not the most interesting man in the room.
He's not at all. I also don't think he's the most interesting in terms of a killer. He's not
Right,
he's not an
right.
interesting murderer. So yeah, those were my feelings about.
Well, before I say my feelings, I'm going to go through some of the comments. Telkana said, my biggest complaint of this book is I read the ebook and the fonts were different between the two formats. One wasn't open dyslexic and I struggled.
Oh,
Yeah, that I think that would be hard. Whenever you have any kind of specially formatted book, I don't know if they take in consideration when you take it away from physical and you put it into different medium, a different format, or like do audio as opposed. I don't think they always think about that, like the author writing the book. I think they just are focusing on their physical book, perhaps. Eleanor said, I was a little disappointed that the library setting was not more prominent in the story. Me too.
That's very fair. Yes.
Because when I saw that it was about the woman in the library, I love stories that take place in the library and, anything to do with libraries, books, whatever. So I was a little surprised about that.
Did you think this was going to be a closed room mystery? Because I did. I thought that they were going to be there the whole time. And when they left, I was like, oh, well, I'm a little disappointed now because I love a closed room mystery.
Yes, I do too. So that was one of the things I was surprised by. And I was also surprised by the format of the back and forth with the correspondence. But as the story unfolded, I was okay with it. So Zach said, Kane was the only one I liked in the 8.5 chapters I read. I hated everyone else. Alexis said,
great. I love Kane.
I didn't like Marigold at all, says Susan. I didn't like Marigold, but I never thought she had what it took to be a good murderer. Good point, Stina. And Marigold is that person you just want to shake. I agree, Jamie. And Angela said, Freddie seemed to be at least 10 years older than the other three. She just seemed more mature. Kane is probably in real life. It's not in real life. Marigold seemed very controlling and just plain annoying.
Yeah.
And yes, I thought it would be a closed door mystery. Yes. So when it came to the characters for me, you and I are pretty much on the same page, Alex, with our feelings about the characters. And we kind of talked a little bit about them texting, here or there. But Freddie, to me, just seemed naive, but she also seemed very loyal. So it's like, even though she's met these, 3 other people and she didn't really know them very well, because they had that shared experience, I just felt like she was really out to look after all of them, and wanted to see them in good light. And I did like her curiosity. I liked that, and I guess that with her being a writer, maybe that's where the curiosity came in. So I did like that. And in my mind, Rose Byrne was my Freddie. So if anybody knows that actress, I just kind of thought that she would pick it. She's an Australian actress. So I figured that would be a good person in my mind to kind of think about.
And who was it? Who did you pick?
Rose Byrne.
I know that name.
Yeah, she was in like Insidious. What else is she in?
Oh yeah,
I know who I'm talking about, huh?
Yes, I do. Hang on, I will show everybody photograph. That is
thank you. That's kind of who I thought of Freddie, was, just attractive, but not overly attractive, and to me, Freddie was Hannah. Like Hannah was writing,
yes,
herself. And I think, like you were saying, I like how you were saying that she's not really describing it so much like you were seeing things through Freddie's eyes. So you were Freddie kind of in the story, which is a kind of cool concept to think of that way. As far as Kane was very mysterious to me. I love that he was scarred by his past. I wouldn't say he was like brooding, but he was kind of just had that, sad backstory.
I think
You
he
know,
was
he
up for
wasn't
that.
but he never acted like a victim, you know
Yep.
what I'm saying? And I don't know, he just had a quiet strength about him, and in my mind, I was thinking of Henry Cavill. That's who I was thinking
Oh,
of.
you were giving him like, ooh, okay. I
Well,
see.
I mean, he was supposed to be very handsome.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, that's the truth. So, but I do like him, and he was my favorite as well. And I just, all of the evidence was stacking against him, and I'm like, that's just too obvious. It's
yep.
too obvious. He cannot be, even though he looks so guilty.
Hmm.
It's just too obvious.
Hmm.
So, unless Freddie's the murderer because she wanted to write a murder mystery, that only left two other people to be murderers. So,
Yeah.
in my heart, I'm like, well, actually, no, because we also have Leo.
Yeah.
Can't
Which
forget
we'll
about
get into.
Leo.
Yeah.
Angela said Wit seemed like a flake, a mama's boy, and more like a teenager. Yes. So,
Yeah.
Angela, that's why I'm putting yours up. I thought Wit was spoiled, entitled, and also very annoying.
Yeah.
And in my mind, the whole time I'm thinking about him, I'm thinking about Matthew Lillard, who played in Scream. He was one of the
Okay.
murderers in Scream. He was also, wasn't he Shaggy in the live Scooby Doo? That is who I
No,
keep
I
thinking
love
of.
him. Don't be
I
mean
love him
about him.
too.
He's a
I
wonderful
love
human.
him. But didn't he remind you like the character in Scream?
I haven't seen Scream in so many
Oh my
years, but
God, that's who he
I
kind of
believe you.
reminded me of.
I
Just
believe you.
that, I don't know. That's who I kept thinking of in my brain. Nothing against Matthew Lillard. I like him as an actor too, but
Sure.
that's kind of who I had in my mind. But yes, he was a playboy. I just didn't like that. I didn't like the fact that, you know, how he treated Caroline, and that was where the entitlement and the I'm gonna get my way kind of
Mhm.
thing. And so, I didn't mean to kill her, but I killed her anyway, just because I wanted to get what I wanted kind of thing.
And then I was going to frame this guy that we knew had murdered somebody because I
Yeah.
can't ruin my future. So, he was already a killer. I mean, what does it matter?
Yeah. I mean, what's so terrible. And then Marigold, she was so annoying. She's like in your face. She was pushy. She's a
Yeah.
stalker.
Yes.
I just was like, I was almost hoping she would die. Just like,
I was kind of hoping she'd be the
could
murderer.
somebody murder her,
Yeah.
please?
Yeah.
So I don't know. There was just so many times where I'm like, it could be Marigold, it could be Wit, but I don't know. Wit doesn't seem like he's capable.
Wasn't
And then
interesting.
yeah, it was just like trying to figure out, like, are these people just like putting on this one persona, when they're in the group, but then they have their dark side that we're not seeing or whatever. And for Marigold, Anna Kendrick was my person.
That's pretty good. That's
Yeah,
pretty
that is who I was thinking of for Marigold. So Zach says, I was actually chatting to an Australian while reading the last two chapters I gave a shot to. There were many, many swear words. Oh, many, many swear words. And I didn't fully trust Kane, but I liked him. I thought Marigold was a bit off. Wit seemed entitled. I wanted it to be more about the library, too. And I was thinking a young Rufus Sewell for Kane.
Let me see.
Ooh, see who that is.
I will.
Yeah, and if anybody else had casting, let me know. I sometimes I can't envision it,
Oh.
but then there's sometimes where for this book, I don't know if it was because it is a mystery thriller. Oh, yeah.
That was more actually, it's funny that he was more in line kind of with what I was thinking. Like
Yeah.
kind of
He
like
might actually be better than Henry Cavill.
I want to find like a
Well, the only reason was because they said he had dark hair and dark eyes, and I'm like trying to think. Oh, yeah.
yeah, that's a good looking man right there.
Mhm.
I mean, Henry Cavill is too.
Oh, yeah, he's pretty good too.
He's very handsome.
There's a scene in Mission Impossible with Henry Cavill in the bathroom where he's fighting, what's his name? Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Like, I love that scene. Like, if I'm streaming it or whatever, I have to watch it millions of times because it's like, oh God, he's so buff. Let me feel that buffness. Love your testing, Cat. Thank you, Jellicle. Marigold is the kind of unhinged person I'm attracted to, but don't let myself get involved with because it's a huge mess. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good choice, Tina. I agree. Yes, Cain was too obvious to be the murderer.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna tell you right now, if Cain would have been the murderer, I would have rated it lower. Because I
Yeah.
would have said that stinks. That you would build up all that and then it would be
Mhm.
that would have been terrible. I would
This
have
is
been so
kind of
mad.
a gentle mystery. Would you agree that this is not like it's not fluffy, but it's not really other than Leo's part, it's really not all that dark either.
No, not really. The
So,
darkest part is Leo.
yeah. If Leo wasn't in it, I actually probably would have given this like a 2.5.
Yeah,
And it
it's
worked
for
really
again,
well.
it's not it wasn't like hardcore mystery, thriller. And ooh, Matthew Lillard is a perfect choice. Thank you. I thought the author was spoiled, entitled, and annoying. You thought the author was spoiled, entitled, and annoying? That's why her characters were? She has a degree in astrophysics and law, but then decided to be a novelist.
Are you talking about Sulari Gentill?
Or I was going to say, are you talking about the actual author or Hannah or Freddie? I've got a lot of authors here. I pictured a young Kristen Bell as Marigold. She seems like she could be a good stalker. Oh, yeah. Kristen Bell. But I like Kristen Bell, so I can't imagine her being annoying. But I guess she was kind of as Eleanor in The Good Life in the beginning. I would have eventually reported Marigold to the police.
I would have told Wit that she was stalking him. Like,
Yes.
I would have been like, "What the frick is happening?"
And Rufus is hot but looks dangerous.
So did Kane.
Rufus definitely looks like he could be a killer to me. Leo liked Marigold. Well, I wonder why.
Yeah.
They both have stalker tendencies.
Yeah.
Kristen Bell is a good choice. I picture Marigold as a blonde.
Yeah.
And yes, the actual author. Really? I didn't get those vibes. If Leo wasn't in it, I would have rated it higher. If Leo wasn't in it, I would have rated it high. Did not understand the purpose of either except for as a distraction.
Okay.
Interesting. Susan said, I like her too, but she's annoying in the good life. Yeah, she can be. Yeah. So Kerry Russell was who I was envisioning as Marigold, but I love these casting choices. Ooh, yeah, Kerry Russell. Hmm. I just recently saw a movie with Kerry Russell in it called Antlers. She
Oh,
would not have been annoying in that one. So Zach said she seemed like an aimless, overeducated rich girl that never had work for anything, a brat like Wit. Ah, gotcha. Okay, so the next question is, when did you start? I'm trying to think. There was another question. Let me ask this one first. Was there anything specific that drew you in or took you out of the story? Let's talk about that one first before we get into Leo.
yeah. So what what drew me in initially were the correspondences with Leo because I was reading her chapter because I was waiting to get to what he was going to say about it, which that was the part I was really enjoying as I was like, okay, because and here's why. I like a book that is self-aware enough that Leo is trying to be the reader and be like, oh, well, is it going to be this person because of this or this person? Or you forgot this detail. I noticed you did this. And it's like, because obviously everybody who reads mystery is doing the same things. He's kind of in the early chapters, he's almost kind of our voice, right?
Right.
And what started kind of like freaking me out about him was he started dropping hints about, mysterious things are happening to people around Boston. And I thought that that part was really good. The part with him that took me out of the book that I found frustrating is when he starts talking about COVID. And I know originally we were going to like kind of have a question about this, but the author in both of our copies, there's a discussions with the author section, and she
Mhm.
answers the question of like why she decided to include COVID in her book, because Leo's whole thing is like, well, you can't just ignore that a pandemic's going on because like we're never going to get past this. This is the new state of the world. And what was so interesting is now being in 2025 going on 2026, COVID is still around, but it's such a small part of our life. But during COVID, we thought it was going to be everything. So, it's funny when you have an author who's like, well, if you don't put COVID in your book, then it dates your book, but then you don't want to make everything about COVID because then it also dates your book. And it's like, if you hadn't even mentioned COVID, I would just think it was perfectly
Right,
normal. So
right.
that was actually the part that kind of irritated me. And I know a lot of books that were written during COVID did that. I mean, I know that they mentioned it because it was for that very reason. Authors are like, well, I can't not talk about it. It's a big thing that's going on in the world. And now I'm like, man, I wish you didn't.
Well, that was one of the main complaints that happened with the book by Stephen King, Holly, was that there was a lot of COVID because he said it during the COVID, pandemic and
Okay.
political information, stuff like that. And it's sort of like, it didn't bother me per se, but I could see where people didn't want to read about it because that's the thing. We lived it and it was a global thing. It wasn't like it was just in one little part of the world. So it's sort of like, we had enough of it that I
Mhm.
don't need to read about it,
Yeah.
in my fiction or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be, because that's not what was the most important part of the story.
Right.
Now, because of things that happened in Holly, I could see where the pandemic and things, the restrictions and limitations didn't allow for certain things to happen.
Mhm.
So it makes sense to include it in there because you were limited at that point. But for this specifically, we had no idea that it was happening because Hannah was trying to write a story that the pandemic was not important at the time.
No.
But it's like once we start getting to know Leo, though, and Leo starts falling apart and gets more unhinged,
Yeah.
you notice the things that he's focusing on. He's focusing on murder. He's focusing on the wildfires. He's focusing on
The
in
mask.
Australia. He's
Yeah.
focusing on the masks. He's focusing on, the pandemic. So, and also too, I think the difference is the isolation was probably getting to him because of the type of personality he was. He's a psycho, obviously, and just being stuck in that situation by himself probably added to that,
Mhm.
so I think all of that was getting to him. For me, what took me out initially was the correspondence with Leo because it just took me out of the story for a second, and then when I realized what was going on,
Mhm.
that he was going to be critiquing, then it
Mhm.
became a pattern and I was fine with it. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, now I need to see what Leo is going to say about this, if he's agreeing or not. I
Mhm.
also, when he started becoming a little unhinged, then it was sort of like, okay, this is getting interesting because then you got the dynamics of having a relationship with someone you don't know, like through the internet, which raises a whole bunch of questions. But
Yes.
anyway, what actually drew me in, though, I just loved it from the beginning that these people are sitting there, a scream is heard, and then that line that that last line that I'm with these four people, I'm with these people in this
Mhm.
group and one of them is a murderer.
Mhm.
So at that point it's like, how is that possible? Because someone screamed, and then the whole time I'm like, how could they be murdered? Was it fake? Was it like, so all of that was going through my mind and that was intriguing to me. So from that point on. So do we want to jump to we already answered the question about the pandemic thing. Was it odd that it was set during the pandemic? Wasn't. And was it weird that Leo brought it up? Just before we move on from that, I liked that it was not set in the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I thought it was weird that Leo brought it up, but then once we get to know more about Leo and his circumstances, I can see why it caused him to be even more cray-cray using Angela's words.
And I feel like maybe this would be a good time to explain to kind of Leo's thing for the people who haven't read this book, because it might be confusing. Like, so Leo is both the person who's corresponding with Hannah, the author of the story we're reading, but Hannah also makes Leo a character in the book,
Yes.
who is a neighbor to Freddie. Okay.
That
So,
is also a writer
yes.
that's in this program that Freddie is in. So,
Because
and it
Leo
both
is a
him,
writer.
Leo Johnson, both
Yes.
of them. But we do discover Leo, the beta reader's real name. And
Yes.
we learn it early on, but I don't know if you caught it
I,
until later.
I didn't. I didn't catch that.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I didn't either. And
Where
then I
was
was
it?
like, I didn't Will Saunders.
Yeah, but no, I mean, where was it early?
Oh, um, mm, mm,
It was it
mm.
did Leo put it in a conversation? Like, what did he out himself in a
Yes,
interesting way?
he says on page 40.
Okay.
Say on page 40.
Now I'm excited. I'm like, I missed something.
Yes. Well, I missed it until I had to go back and find it. And I was like, this seems kind of odd. It is in it's in
Oh.
his thing. He says, I knew a guy who used to plot his work like Kane. He was a cop. So that might have had something to do with it. And he was a control freak, planned everything, left nothing to chance. His name was Will Saunders. You won't have a heard of him. He never finished his novel.
Oh my
And
God.
then we learn later when the FBI people
Yes.
send the thing that his name is really Will
Good
Saunders.
catch,
I
Cat.
know.
Very
I
good
was like,
catch.
so
I
that's
did
what I'm
get
just
that.
like, okay. Because then things started adding up to me because remember how there's a part where he sends her the photos
Yeah.
and it would only have been accessed by somebody who was a police officer,
Oh, yeah.
the crime
Well, because he
scene
made a
photos.
comment, yeah, because he made a comment in one of them that was like, "Oh, I think this was before the police showed up." It was like a whole thing.
Right, right. And then the FBI confirmed that no one would have had the access to that unless they have, and then they mentioned police, whatever. So anyway, I just thought that was him like indirectly, you know. So I didn't catch it then. I had to go back and look for where his name was. And then when I read it, I was like,
Very good job.
that was him indirectly like showing something about himself.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But Leo, the character in the novel, is he's a romantic. He's a romance author, who is clearly has a crush on Freddie. So it's interesting that Hannah seemed to recognize that and like put some parts about Leo into her book. So that becomes and we'll talk about the ending later, but that becomes the part about the end where we have to interpret what
Yes.
Hannah was saying about Leo.
Yes.
So yeah, Leo was definitely a really intriguing part of this book. And when he was like getting more and more violent and describing like, oh, I think this would be the perfect time for you to just strangle her. But I also
I
think that you can
know.
make it to where, they're sexually assaulted, because the more visceral it is, the better. And you're like, oh my God, like he's truly taken the mask off, metaphorically now. Um, and I was kind of like, if I was thinking about myself in in Hannah's position, I would have been freaked. And I'm so glad that she did reach out to the FBI, and this wasn't one of those
Yes.
books where she's like, I'm going to figure it out myself. Like, no, she went to the police.
I'm going to tell y'all a story. Don't let me forget to tell you a story about another real life author that I went to go see in a story, something like that.
Okay.
Okay. Not as sinister as this Leo, but just I thought it's funny.
Okay.
So just remind me before we get off so I can share that. I had my thing. Shoot. Oh, Stina said when I got a handle on the layers of meta was when she was getting drawn in. Leo was likable until I started getting creepy about the pandemic and the race of the characters. We have a question about that. I read another book last month that happened in 2020 and ignored COVID, and that was so much worse. Jane in Love, and that
Okay.
was so much worse. Oh,
Is it because it was set in 2020? because this book, there was never a year that was given,
Right,
and I
right.
think
We
that's
would never
where
have
I get it.
known we
Yeah,
would never have known if Leo wouldn't have brought it up.
exactly. And I think maybe that's the difference too, is like, yeah, if you wrote, "Hey, it's 2020 and there wasn't COVID," I might think that was weird. But since there was no year in this, I was like, ah, it's
Yeah.
ambiguous. It could be any time.
Mhm. And I have a screenplay that I completely ruined because I tried to reset it, had to scrap it and go back to my original outline. That stinks. It took me a few chapters to get into, but I enjoyed the Leo correspondence with Hannah the most. And Susan says, I'm reading one now that's about a pandemic that happens a few years after COVID.
Hmm.
I kept getting hung up on Leo being jargon for
Lore.
law enforcement officer. So it was kind of neat that he used to be a cop.
Hmm.
Oh, that is pretty cool.
That
I
is.
like that. I like that play. I wonder if she specifically did it that way.
It sounds like it. I never would have
Because,
gotten that.
like the whole thing with the Cain and Abel, and Cain killed Abel, so he wanted to kill his past. And, that I thought was pretty cool too.
Mhm. Mhm.
Although I hated his name was Abel Manners.
Well, that's what they were making a whole joke about that. Yeah.
I missed all that in the letter Leo part. Yeah, I did too. Nice catch. Thank you. And then I feel like Hannah was writing certain things in a certain way to try to bait Leo. And I think something was said about it being set in 2019.
Also, I do want to comment on the baiting Leo part. I did agree with that, but there were certain parts in it where I was like, I don't feel like she is, and I'm trying to figure out like how she was writing him. So that whole thing with her including Leo in the story and the way that she put him in there was interesting because she did technically bait him in a way that is like far more horrifying than so many other ways that it could have gone. Um, but the part about something that's said about it being set in 2019, I don't recall within Hannah's story about Freddie that there was ever a comment about the year. But
Mhm.
Leo brings up that it's the beginning of COVID. So that's where I got technically when the story is supposed to be set, right? Because he's talking about it, but I never got that from Freddie's story.
Yes, I did not get it from Freddie's story either. So I don't know why he had to bring that up, why he was so concerned about everything that was worldly going on at the time. Um,
I think that's a popular opinion. I mean, Talcana was saying, hey, I'm reading a book that's set in 2020 and they didn't talk about COVID. And I think that's worse. I do think that at the time when we were in the height of COVID and life felt so isolating that if you're going to write a book that's contemporary in any way, it was more true to life to make it where you had the anonymity of
mhm.
the masks and baseball caps and whatever. Because there were people who did commit crimes while people were
Oh,
wearing masks
yeah, 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 that is
because of
true.
that. So that makes a lot of sense. I think I'm more coming at it from the perspective of now that we're out of that mentality, I don't want like my books going forward to heavily focus on
Right, on
and
that.
this book was written in 2022. So it was like kind of like everybody was starting to come out of it. So
I think one of Leo's responses was something like, "I know you say it's set in late 2019, but"
did he?
oh, maybe so.
Okay. Well, if he did and I'm wrong about that, my apologies. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention either to that, as well. So while we're talking about Leo, let's talk about Leo. Your question was, when did you start realizing that something was wrong with Leo? And we're
Okay.
talking about Leo, the beta reader.
The beta reader, yes.
Yeah,
So my
I mean, there's something also wrong with Leo, the neighbor, too.
yeah. Yeah, my first inclination was, actually when so he had gone to that agent and given his as he called it, his opus, and, he was like, "She, had a mysterious accident. Hmm, how interesting about that?" And I was like, "You fucking killed her." I, like, immediately, I was like, "You are vindictive and hateful, and you're mad because nobody wants to read your stupid book." And because that was his whole thing in the beginning is he was obsessed about his work, and then it wasn't his work anymore. It became he was obsessed with Hannah's work. and how it was going to go, and how he was just waiting there with bated breath all the time. For he couldn't wait for the next chapter because he was like so excited about this prospect that he was going to know what was going to happen in this book. And it was interesting because the more it went through the course of the novel, the more frustrated with her he got that she wasn't responding to any of his feedback. Or at one point he rewrote her chapter, and he's like, "I
Yes.
rewrote this for you to include the, the parts about COVID and people wearing masks. Also, here's more photos of dead bodies and stuff like that." And so yeah, that was it for me. Was I knew he murdered that agent.
Yes, I thought for sure that that was it, but I started realizing that he seems so cheerful and friendly in the beginning, but then when you started really, like, reading in between the lines,
Yeah.
like, on page 55, he sounds really bitter because he brings up
Yes.
race, and he's like,
Oh yeah.
on less important matters, which that's him prefacing because it is important to him. I received a letter from Alexandria who says that while she enjoyed reading the opus, she regrets that she cannot offer me representation. I'm not sure she actually regrets it, but that's what she wrote. The reality is, I suppose, that I am a straight white man with no diversity or disadvantage to offer as a salve for the fashionable collective guilt that rules publishing. I
Yes.
understand that popular correctness demands that men like me be denied to compensate for all the years in which we were given too much. I just wish I had a chance to enjoy a little of that privilege before it became a liability. Anyway, she said no, so there we are. And then after that happened, you knew that she was bitter. He was bitter at that point.
Yep.
So then he also makes a statement on pages 62 and 63 where he's talking about his disappointment, and he makes the statement, but I have recovered and am more determined than ever to see this dream through, to find my way into print somehow. And so at the time I didn't really think about that until I was going back and kind of thinking, when did he first start seem like he was becoming less friendly? And it was when he was got that rejection. So I almost was wondering that he wasn't talking about the book anymore, that he
Mhm.
was talking about he was going to commit murder and he was going to get his 15 minutes of fame.
That makes a lot of
And the
sense.
only reason I think that is because of what you said. That confirmed it to me that I think he killed her, because with us not knowing at that point that there was a pandemic going on, the fact that she had an accident, and he says it's funny how things work out sometimes. So I was just like, I'm like, I wonder when he talks about getting in print, if he means
The
literally his
newspaper.
book,
The
or
newspaper.
just the fact that people are going to know who he is, whether he's print in the newspaper or whatever.
That's also a really great point. And I did notice that rant because it bothered me. But the reason I put the part with the accident that happened is because I couldn't confirm at that point that he was a murderer. So that was the him saying like, "Oh, this accident happened to her." That was when I was like, "No, he freaking killed her." But before that, yeah, there were
There were
things
little
that he
things,
was
little
saying.
hints
Yeah,
that I was like, man, that sounds kind of like he
yeah,
sounds sour. He sounds, like I didn't get my way, and
yeah,
I thought this was all going to work out and somebody was going to think my reading or whatever. So
yep,
it was just, he wasn't that cheerful person. But when he said that about her being killed, I'm like, hmm.
yep.
And so then I went back to read, and I'm like, I just wonder,
Mhm.
did he kill her? Because that's so odd that there was an accident. And then, of course, it starts unfolding, and we see all these other, he tells us in details about all these other murders. It has to be him murdering the people, I mean,
And well, and the fact he started doing things that were happening in, Hannah's book, talking
yes,
about Freddie, because of the fact that, like, Kane got hit over the head with a glass by Boo, and then he was at a bar and was like, "I went to this dive bar, and it ended up being more of a dive than I thought because this guy got hit in the head with a beer bottle, and here I took this picture, and you can really see the glass shards sticking out of his head." And I'm like, "Oh, you just so happen to go into a bar where somebody also got hit in the head with a bottle? Hmm?"
right.
Like, it was, there were some things where it's like, okay. Like you know that this man's a freak. And then it starts becoming like how bad of a freak, and it gets
Right.
worse and worse.
Yes, like, and then he's just unhinged at that point. And then you can feel the aggression in his correspondence to Hannah, where like profanity and like, you're going to do this, and like questioning her, and you're not listening to me.
Yeah.
So Stina says it was audiobook though, so I may have misheard something and interpreted that way in my head. No, you're probably right. It was probably one of those things that I just kind of glossed over. Jamie said, I think part of the reason Leo was obsessed with COVID was the anonymity. I think that real Leo probably started killing during COVID.
He did. He confirmed that it
Yeah.
was because he made the comment like, I think this mask is making me bolder. Here, I took a picture of this crime scene for you. It looks like the cops haven't gotten here yet. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he absolutely killed the agent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beta Rita started going off when he was obsessed about race. Definitely off once he started sending pictures. Yeah.
Yeah.
After a while, he started calling it our work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was the possession, it was the obsession.
Mhm.
And all along, I just kept thinking to myself, he wanted to meet her so badly, and he was all discouraged and everything. But what really freaked me out was when he actually gets caught in Australia. And I'm just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that was like, think of how close, how close.
Well, they
And
actually saw each other because he commented on that. We barely were able to lay eyes on each other before I was apprehended. But one day, I'm a very patient man, and I will wait, even though I asked for you many times and you never came to see
right.
me. It's like, oh my God, there's an episode of NCIS where Abby has a stalker, and at the end of the episode, he's sitting in the interview room, the interrogation room, and he thinks that she's behind the two-way mirror, and he's like trying to talk to her, and it turns out she's not there, and he like has a meltdown because he's like, I know she'd be there for me. And that is like what I thought about when it came to Leo, is like he really thought that she like loved him and like or like wanted to be his like mentee in some
Yes.
way.
And
It,
what's so freaky about it is technically what if he got out on a technicality, or I
uh,
don't know. It's just the fact that she's never going to be away from him. Like, he's always going to be in her life.
I'm so glad you said that, because that primes me for what we're going to talk about for character Leo. Because yes, 100%.
So let's get through those, and then we're gonna, because I have things to say about our character Leo too. Right, Jamie, creepy. And yeah, it was interesting to watch the red flags pop up like he was a one-man flag corps. The white privilege rant almost made me DNF. And I can't remember exactly when I zoned in on Leo, but it was during Alex's sprints last Friday. It was early on.
Yeah.
And Stina. Thinking about it, Holly was the only book I've read that, including COVID, didn't make it worse, except for Bat Eater and other names for the Cora Zeng by Kylie Lee Baker, where it was necessary. Yeah, it didn't bother me in Holly either. I mean, I just think it was of the time, and because of the limitations, and if things would have been in place, a lot of stuff wouldn't have slipped through the cracks.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So unless people have read Holly and know what I'm talking about, I mean, Zach knows, but I don't know. I gave Stephen King grace with that. I gave him a pass, with that situation. And Alex, your face. I'm sure that's how I looked reading it.
Yeah. It really bothered me when he like the FBI is confirming that like no, he made it into Australia with like a fake ID, and we know that he's part of the police, which is how he seems to have evaded us so far. And I'm like, this is my worst nightmare. Like him
Well, it
coming
is,
for
because I
her.
mean, you take a risk when you put yourself out there as anybody
Yep.
who's interacting in any kind of way where
Yep.
you kind of become like a public figure,
Yep.
and it happens. I mean, those parasocial kind of relationships happen, and and the other thing that's creepy to me, and this is going to have a segue into Leo the neighbor, is you never know who is watching you or who's paying attention to you if you don't have anybody like necessarily on your radar per se. But when you do find out that somebody knows your comings and goings, or they make a comment about something, it is jarring to you as a person to think, well, how many times did you pass by my house and see that my car wasn't in the driveway? You know what I'm saying? It's that kind of stuff. Or if somebody mentions, yeah, I saw you at XYZ, but they didn't come and they didn't talk to you. So it's sort of like, that's kind of
Yep.
creepy. Or if it's the same thing coming over and over again. Yeah, stuff like that would freak me out. Because I don't know. I wouldn't be able to handle it, I don't
I
think.
mentioned this before on my channel, and I will say it again for the record. When I started YouTube, I told Keaton if anybody ever did anything remotely stalkerish or like showed up somehow where I live or like got too much into my life, I was leaving the internet. Like I was like, nope, that's it. I'm done. So it would not happen.
Yeah,
No.
Eleanor said, didn't Leo state he left or had cupcakes left in Hannah's kitchen at
He
the
did,
end?
and I wondered how he did that because he was locked up when he said that. So I'm like, how did he do that? Oh, I don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah, just having somebody in your house that's not invited in your house is a freaky feeling.
Yeah.
Alexa says yes, Zach for Bat Eater. That's why I think Stalker Marigold was written to bait Leo.
She definitely was. I mean, not that freaky, but still very freaky because
Yeah.
we knew that she stalked Wit like super hard and knew all about like the security at his house, knew exactly where he lived, set up a circumstance at which they would meet each other at the library.
Yes.
Probably at least I did. I initially thought she was probably jealous of the other women that he was sleeping with because he like slept with everybody and like broke all these women's hearts. And as soon as Marigold was like, "Oh, we had a night together," I was like, "It's over. It's freaking over," because and then he stood her up with,
Oh, yes. That
that
was
whole
awful.
thing. I was like, I don't foresee this going very well with Marigold. And I was really surprised at the end that she was not a freak. Like, I mean, she was a freak for the stalker part, but she wasn't a murderer.
Right, right.
So, yeah.
Jellicle said, I was suspicious of Leo, the character. I kept worrying there was something wrong with the food and the cupcakes. I did too,
Oh,
Jellicle. I
oh,
did too. I kept thinking, I would not eat something that somebody sent me without a note. I would
agreed.
not,
Yep. 100.
because I would be so afraid that something would have been put in it.
Yep.
You just don't know. I mean, they could
100%.
put anything. Rehnol. Oh my God. And yeah, so Stina thought the same thing. That's what I thought. At first they sent the groceries, and then once she found out that it wasn't Kane that sent the second basket
He's like,
of
stop
of
eating
that.
the stuff. Yeah.
But I will say, and just to let y'all know, Leo in my mind was Timothy Oliphant. I don't know if you know
Oh,
who he is. That was
from
my
Santa Clarita
Leo.
Diet.
Yeah, well, I picked him because in my mind, he could be a friendly guy,
or
but I could
crazy.
see him also turning. He
You should
just
see
seemed
him in
like,
Agent 47. That's my favorite movie he's in. Or
is
Hit
what?
or Hit is it Hitman? Agent 47?
Oh, I haven't seen that
He's
one.
he's the character from the Hitman game, but in a movie.
Oh,
And
that's fun.
it's a fun movie. I love him in it. So,
Well,
yeah.
I loved him in Santa Clarita Diet. My
Oh,
husband and I
yeah,
both loved him in that. But
he's really
anyway, that's who I had. I also loved him when he had a part on The Office too, and he was funny in that too as well. But anyway, I have him because he's not like, um he's good looking, but he's not over the top good looking. He's like your average kind of guy next door kind of thing. So to me, fit like Leo the neighbor, but I could also see him being like a cop and people trusting him. He'd have a face that was trustworthy, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So Leo fascinated me throughout the whole entire book. I think because both Leos were enamored with the writers. You've got Leo, he is a writer, but he's enamored with Freddie. And then you've got Leo that's enamored with Hannah, you know.
Mm-hmm.
On the one hand, Leo, the neighbor, is nice and very supportive, but the stalker vibes that came across to me were creepy. And how he always seemed to conveniently pop up and want to give help. And I had to go back and think about Leo and all the times and when it first started. And I forgot that Leo actually was watching Freddie from the very beginning.
Yes, he was.
Because on page 10, he asks her about being in the library.
Yep. And
And
he's like, I
Freddie's
was
like, "How did
there.
you know I was in there?" And he's like, "I saw you there. You were in the map room."
Uh-huh.
And I was like, "Oh, that's really interesting. Why didn't he go and say hello?" That's what makes me creeped out about somebody. No, granted, I mean, you don't always want to run into somebody that you know because you might be strapped for time or you need to get somewhere or whatever the case may be. It could be a busybody that you don't want to talk to or whatever. I get that. But considering Leo's relationship with Freddie,
Yep.
it just seemed out of character that he wouldn't have approached her there. And at that point, I kind of wonder, like, it seemed like Freddie was a little surprised, like, "How did you know I was there?" kind of thing. But she's so like, uh, that's where her naive and like she was more curious than like startled by it
Yeah, she didn't think that somebody would do anything wrong.
because he seemed so nice
Yeah.
and
And I
supportive.
the my one I guess my two ways of kind of writing that off initially were like, oh well, they had talked about there being a policy in the library of like no talking. And then the
Mhm.
real Leo was like, well, there isn't really, but that's a fun way to write that in, right? But this idea that like you're not supposed to talk in the reading room. So it's like maybe that's why he didn't approach her. But then the reason why I didn't know until the end, but I didn't really think that um, Hannah would write in Leo as being a murderer in her book overtly was because Leo, the correspondent, commented in one of his letters to her, like, are you saying I could have been the accomplice? I feel like I should be flattered. You know, and this is after he's starting to show his hand about the fact that he is actually a serial killer.
Yeah,
And he thought that was neat that he gets to be a killer in her book, right? But
because
then
he's
she
a
didn't do
killer in real life.
right, but then she didn't write that in. And so, and that was the other thing too. It was like real Leo doesn't actually know how her story ends, which is
Right.
also interesting with why. So, character Leo in the end, the big suspenseful thing, and this was the part that I actually had to read it multiple times because I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure I didn't miss something. So, the very end of the book, so Kane had been shot by Wit. We learned that Wit was the killer all along, and it was like supposedly, you know, an accident. But they end up going to Marigold and Freddie go to the hospital to see Kane, and they get in the library together, and they're or the library, sorry, they get in the
The
elevator together.
elevator.
Yeah, they get in the elevator together. They're both covered in blood. And the very last page, it says, Marigold and I are discussing the logistics of escape when the elevator doors open. And so we don't notice the man in the corner until the doors close behind us. And then we do Leo. I stare, thrown off balance by the fact that he's here. What are you? He smiles. I thought you might need me.
Well, so that's what I was gonna say. I didn't want to say anything until you brought that up. You know, I was getting the kind of creepy vibes from him a little bit here and there, especially at the end of the novel. It kind of confirmed to me, and that's why I went backwards to figure out now I know who the person was that was leaving all these things or whatever. And then going back to the beginning, I'm like, oh, he's been stalking her since he met her, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And she wasn't startled at the beginning, but she was startled in the elevator.
Yes.
And whether she knows it or not, he's always where she is, whether she knew that or not.
Yes.
And I also felt uncomfortable for her when they went on that outing, even though they had two other people with her. Leo was so like insistent that she couldn't leave. Like, and she was freaking out because she needed to get to Cain and all that kind of stuff and had to warn him and everything. And he was just so insistent at that point. So then I'm like, that's just creepy to me. But it wasn't until the elevator that I was like, I wonder if he has been stalking her that whole time. So then I had to go backwards. So I didn't know initially what page 10. I didn't think that was anything a big deal at first until that last scene. And so if you think about it, he sent her groceries.
Yep.
He paid the restaurant bill.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. You're right. You're right.
He sent the cupcakes, and then he just all of a sudden shows up and knows exactly where they're at.
He does call her beautiful, though. That was the other part, too, that creeped me out in the book is when they're having that conversation in her kitchen, and he's like, well, why is it that beautiful, talented women always end up liking dangerous men? And it's like, oh, are you talking about yourself there, Leo? Because yeah, he was pissed off that she liked Cain instead, even though like they seem to have a connection kind of in the beginning, but like once Cain enters the picture, it's like, oh well, it's obviously all about him at that point. Leo was always kind of like the side friend, but not even really a full friend. And so I completely forgot about the freaking bill being paid. That creeps me out even worse. And you made a comment earlier, and this is when I wanted to bring this up because it's so true. This idea that the real Leo made such an impression on Hannah, the author, that he would be with her forever. And it was that sense by the end of the book, I was like, that she wrote that in because even though he didn't read the end, he doesn't even know how the book ends. She wrote that in for herself because that is going to stick with her for the rest of her life. And I think she also was always going to get the sense that she was being watched. Right. Even though he was in prison, she was always going to feel like she's being watched and how deeply unsafe and disconcerting that would be.
Yes, that's why I thought I was like, until something happened to him and he was not, he was dead or whatever, he would always be tied to her in some way.
Yes.
I mean, I could see him literally making friends with somebody in prison, that person get out of prison, and that person be somebody he pays to like send Hannah gifts or things. Or what if Hannah's touring somewhere, and flowers are sent to her when she's, at a book signing or something like that. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that would freak me out. But then it's sort of like it's the same thing for Freddie. And then it's like at that point, it's like Freddie's like, this guy is always popping up. Like I haven't been paying attention to him, but maybe I should have been paying attention to him, kind of thing. So I don't know. I was kind of creeped out about that. And then at that point, I was like, well, Leo, the neighbor, we don't know for a fact if he's killed anybody or not, but
no,
he does have stalker tendencies.
That's the through line of this book. Marigold, stalker. Leo, both Leos, stalkers. It's awful. Yeah.
Yeah. You almost wonder if Sulari Gentill had a stalker in her life, and that's
Maybe,
why she wrote it.
They are terrifying because you don't know whether somebody means you harm or not.
Right.
Sometimes.
Right. So Angela said, like a note my daughter found tucked under a pillow on her porch that read, "You're a beautiful woman. This is just between you and me." Left a number to call. I called it. That is scary as heck.
Oh my God.
And yeah, neighbor Leo gave me the heebie-jeebies too. Yeah, I'm just a person like when sometimes you just get vibes about certain people, and Leo would have been a person that I would have tried to avoid. I don't care if we were in the same program or not. He would have just been somebody I would have avoided. He just seemed, there was something too nice about him, too accommodating, too like always there when I need you kind of thing. Stina said at the SO I worked at in New Mexico, anytime there was a random treats in the break room, the deputies were all, "Who brought this? Is it safe?"
As they should. That's good.
Yikes. I know, Angela, that is terrible. Terrible. And I was just going to say, she said, it got solved fairly quickly when my daughter took it to the office at her complex. She recognized the number immediately. The man had asked her out just a month prior, and he was evicted.
I
That is very scary.
Yeah. I've had actually a similar situation that happened to me with a neighbor that I had. He had the police called on him for beating the crap out of his girlfriend, and then his girlfriend left him, and then he was sitting out drinking on his porch one day and looks down at me and asked me to come up to drink with him.
Oh,
I ran inside my apartment like as fast as, and he was my next door neighbor, so I couldn't get away from him. His
oh
porch
God.
was literally outside my bedroom door. It was horrible. That was actually the reason I bought my house.
I was gonna
I
say
was
I would have been
I
like
was
figuring out a way
terrified of
to
him.
move.
Absolutely he used to beat on my walls in the middle of the night. He would scream. It was horrible,
That is awful.
horrible. So I understand that, and I'm sorry that that happened to her.
Yes. Turned off the one with Timothy Oliphant is just called Hitman.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I like the one
Hitman
with
Agent 47 is a different, much worse movie.
yeah, I never watched that one because I like the one with Timothy Oliphant.
Because you mentioned the food, I'm going to eat something someone from the internet sent me. It's actually a caramello koala from Australia. Don't worry, I trust her. Well, if you know the person,
Yeah, that's different.
I mean, my friend Alicia Yo sent me Reese's peanut butter cups through the mail, and I ate every one of those. Telkana said, I thought Leo was the killer for most of the book, forgot about the first bit of the book. Jamie, oh, this is where she was saying about what ended up happening with her daughter. And I've eaten a lot of treats from internet friends. Yeah, well, that's because you trust them, you
Yeah.
know? And that was my July big scare. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is awful. Very, very scary for sure. So let's talk about the question before we get to like the ending part of it, because you had it was like two parts, okay, with wit and then the ending. So did you assume the characters were white? And what about Hannah Tigony, um who is the author, the story author, the one
Mhm.
who's writing about Freddie and them? So did you assume the characters were white?
I did,
I did
honestly,
too.
and I will say that's, probably my bias as a white person that when I read a book, if there are not descriptions that are given for a character, then I am in part I fill them in like thinking about myself, right? Like if I read that a character is a person of color, I think of them as a person of color, but if there are no descriptions given, I guess I always assume that they're white. And that was something I had to wrestle with when Leo brought it up and he's like, you can't like have a character of color and then not say that they're of color because people are going to assume that they're white. And I was sitting there like, oh my God, I did that. I absolutely.
Yeah, but you know what I was thinking about when you asked this question, because yes, I thought both the characters were white and I thought Hannah was, until Leo makes a comment. And then I'm like, okay, well, I have all these images of these people
Yes.
in my mind of who they are.
Right.
But then I thought, well, that's kind of makes Sulari Gentill's book to where anybody could read it and anybody could put themselves or whoever they want in it.
Yes.
And so you're not boxed in to that. So, I guess for me, just coming up with people like celebrity type people, because I was thinking of this, like if this was a movie or this was a TV show, this is kind of how I would do it.
Yeah.
Well, then, I get that curveball from Leo and I'm like, well, yeah, I didn't think about that.
Right.
Well, and then it's like that kind of throws a whole monkey wrench into reading the story. And
Mhm.
it's like, so then I kind of thought, well, what was Leo's purpose for doing that?
I think it was to honestly just make the point to the reader about how common it is for like us to put ourselves to a degree in the story of like thinking about people looking the way that we do if they're not described as looking different. I think
Uh,
what Solari Gentill was trying to say is that is a common occurrence that if a person is not overtly described as being a person of color, you will assume that they're white. I remember I was reading a Stephen King novel I believe it was Under the Dome, and there was a character that was introduced, and we had talked about him for a long, long time, and like his relationship with his family and everything. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, King goes, and he's black. And I remember sitting there, and I was like, we just had all that about him, and then you just put that in there in the middle as like a, and it just stopped, and it made me think, and I'm like, well, there's no reason he couldn't be that whole time. I just didn't assume that he was.
Right,
And
right.
then I changed my point of view, and I thought about him as that for the rest of the book. But I do think that that is something, and it probably is white bias. It's very common
Mhm.
for us to do that. And I did think
Right.
it was a good point. It was a
Well,
point
because
well
she
made.
specifically just described people to the point that you it could have gone
Yeah,
anyway. any
absolutely.
any way to do it. But then I also thought perhaps it was because Leo was so focused on it, and when he had the rant about the white privilege and all that kind of stuff, it was sort of like, you need to be more specific, and you're talking about them being here, and you don't really know, because if this Cain was living in that area, then he would have to be black. He couldn't be white or whatever the case may be. And so at that point, you're just seeing that he obviously has a problem with race,
Yeah.
Leo himself, and then it begs the question, why is Leo not a cop anymore? I was so curious about that. Like, why is he not a cop anymore? Was he involved in something that was a racial situation? And that is why he's got a chip on his shoulder about race? I mean, I would have loved to have known, just like what
Yeah.
his backstory, what that was, because, he was very clever to where he didn't even want to send, how she was asking for like his address,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and then he sends a selfie, but of course it's got a baseball cap and all that kind of stuff.
Covered, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see how y'all felt about that. You know, uh, let's see what Stina says. That was one thing that Leo was actually right about.
Yeah.
Okay. I assumed they were white as well.
Mhm.
He just went nuts about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. It's just, it was so, but it makes you go back to that rant that he had
Yeah.
about it. And it's sort of like, and then when he said, and I know that you're not,
Yeah.
so then it raised the questions. It's like, okay, well, so this kind of changes things,
Yeah. 100%. It was originally a point well made, and then it got to the point where he's like this.
Right.
Like everything starts, he's a hammer
Well,
and
he
everything
was he was starting
falls.
to he was
Yeah.
starting to deteriorate, as like his, he was going crazy to the point that everything was coming out of his true colors, I guess.
Yeah.
Zach said, I was just joking about around. I definitely trust her, but I also wish I had more than one. That was freaking awesome. I'm gonna have to order more caramello koalas. And some authors try to do that, but it's hard, partially because when American cops are involved, race is a huge thing.
Yes.
But wasn't Wit described somewhere as being very pale?
Wit was the most white of all of them, like guaranteed white. And I think somebody in the book, was it Leo, made a comment about that, where it's like,
Mhm.
oh well, he seems, because he's privileged and comes from the lawyer family and everything, like he's most obviously probably white, but it was a question about the other three. It's like whether
Right,
they were or not, we didn't know.
right.
So
Um, I don't know how to pronounce this.
recitative.
Recitative by Toni Morrison is an excellent study on this. I love Toni Morrison's Beloved. I mean, it's a hard book, but it's so good.
I need to read
Um,
that. It's
it's so well
on
written. Oh my
my like
god.
lifelong list of books to
Imma
read.
tell you what, Beloved, you will just, I can't imagine you reading it without, like, being so, like, emotionally.
Oh, will
Yeah,
it break me? I love books that hurt. I do.
yeah, I think I mean, it's one that I'll never forget reading. Never. Alicia said, I can only stay for a sec, but I also thought Leo thing was wild at the end. He was so unlikable the whole time, even before you realized the twist. I gave it 3 stars. Yeah, Alicia was kind of thinking 3 stars. at one point, so she stuck with her rating. We appreciate you popping in, Alicia. And Angela said there would have to be a sequel to find out what made Leo tick. Would we read it? I don't think so.
Nope.
Because that's what he would want. Because
Yeah.
he would want to be in print. He would want, like, I think he's just excited. And like the fact that I just can see him taunting and haunting Hannah for the rest of her life from prison.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think if he had gotten his book published, he would have become a murderer? Because I'm not convinced he would have. I think he became a murderer because of the fact he was rejected. And then because he makes a comment about like, well, once a killer discovers their taste for killing, suddenly they start getting excited about it. And it's like, well, had he not murdered the agent, he probably wouldn't have become a serial killer.
Well, and the thing about it is he got a taste for it because he was so mad and so angry about it that it didn't go his way. And
failed artists, Kat, they just become crazy people.
well, and the thing is he ended up, murdering her. And so I think for him, it was an easy thing, but you almost wonder though, too, it goes back. Why is he no longer a cop? Yeah. Did he do something?
Could have.
Did he murder somebody back then? And that's why it was easy for him to snap with the agent.
Very possible.
Jellicle said, I just want to mention that my favorite characters was the elderly lady who told them she was a doctor. Yes.
And a plumber
she
sometimes.
was hilarious. I loved that whole entire scene when the lawyers come to the door and they want to give them a settlement because they do not want them to sue her. Yes, Jellicle, I love that too. I had notes that she was hilarious. Very, very good. And I still wonder what was up with the whole thing. Yes, Jellicle, she was fantastic. And I don't know what the agent was. I didn't know that the agent was his first kill. Yes, that's what I didn't realize that until he started becoming unhinged. And I started realizing, that was when I was like, that's kind of weird that something, and it was just the way funny how things happen. It was the way he said that. And then that's when I realized, I wonder if he killed the agent. That just seems so coincidental. And I had to verify it because at first I thought I was getting confused and thinking the agent had died of COVID. That's what I read. And then when I went back to read it, and then I went back even further. And that's when I started saying, and discovered the Will Saunders.
Yeah. Yes. Very
so
good.
The podcast LeVar Burton Reads has 2 episodes for Recitative. I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
I have not listened to those, but I do love LeVar Burton Reads. And yes to Jellicle. I was afraid Kane was going to be scarred for life. I just thought it was hilarious. And then, of course, Leo, the neighbor, borrows her car.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so our last question was, did Whit make a good murderer? Let's answer that one first.
Okay. No, he was boring as hell. And I didn't really think that the reveal at the end was all that satisfying. And I think for me, that's because there were certain things in the book I was holding on to that I was waiting for there to be a better explanation for. And when I got the explanation, I was like, oh, well, that's less exciting than I thought. So that's kind of where the 3.5 came in. Had the ending been more, I don't know. I understand Kane got shot in the end, but it's like the last 10 pages. It's like, okay, and he's the killer, because they literally were running to his house thinking it was Marigold. And then it's like, and then he shoots Kane and it's like, oh no, I'm actually the killer. It's like 10 pages until the end and we get that explanation. I didn't like that very much. But you let me know when you want me to tell you about which part I was hanging on to about what I wanted.
Well, for as far as Whit making a good murderer, I did not think he was I was just like, I don't know. He was kind of funky. I didn't like Whit. I don't know what it was about him. I don't know. And then he freaked out and then he was just going to kill everybody. And it's like, what did you think? And you know what else about Whit? I think Whit thought he was going to get away with all of it because his mom was a lawyer and could get him out of it.
Yeah,
That's
they
what
didn't talk about the fact that she got hit on the head by her own son, and I'm like they had that line at the end of the book like, "Yeah, the cops are speculating that he attacked his own mother." It's like, "Yeah, no shit.
right.
We know that." And then she realized it was her own son and probably asked him like, "What the hell are you doing?" Because he didn't mortally wound her, and but he did hate her, but he didn't mortally wound her. And then he's
Right.
like, she's like, "Oh, I got to protect my boy."
Yeah. I just thought he was, like, ridiculous. I think he was, like, trying to be something he wasn't, like he wasn't capable of being. Now, Skeleton Key or Stina says, at that point, I was still trying to keep the layer straight with just, lots of parallels. And he only had a 50% success rate that we know of, I guess. Eleanor said, I need to exit the chat. Great observations from everyone. Thanks, Eleanor, for being here. We appreciate it. And I thought that was specifically to piss off Leo and make him mess up and get caught.
Yeah, but
Oh,
then he didn't even know the ending. That was the other part that
yeah.
I thought was a little disappointing is like, wait, the whole thing is he was waiting to know whether he was right. And in the end, he really thought that he did. And he's like, well, I guess I need to request a copy of your book.
Jamie said I had Wit pegged as the killer pretty early on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good for you.
I don't know. It was like
Would
I
not.
was all over the place. It was like I almost couldn't think of Wit being capable of pulling it off. And so I guess because Caroline was an accident, I guess it was just like the circumstances. I don't see him going out of his way to like actually murder anybody. So it
Yeah.
was like the murders happened. It wasn't because he was a good murderer. It's sort of like you shaking somebody and they fall backwards and they conk their head on the counter and they're dead, or they break their neck because you were like in a struggle or whatever. You didn't mean to murder them. That's kind of how I envision him and Carolyn, kind of thing.
Right. But we
You know
can't
what I'm
forget he
saying?
murdered two people.
Well, but then he murders the other person, but it was in self-defense because Boo, remember how aggressive he was?
It wasn't in self-defense because he said that he slit Boo's throat and he said he never woke up. That's what Whit said. He's like, he
Okay.
never woke up.
Okay.
He was
Okay.
just
I
he was
missed that.
like in a drug stupor out on the beach and Whit slashed his neck.
Okay. So
And
in
it was
that
in
case,
retaliation for being stabbed.
okay, well, then think about that too. He could not stab somebody who was not inebriated or like sleeping or something. Like he had to have that be the way that he could carry it out.
Yeah.
Whereas if you compare it to Leo, the murderer, Leo didn't care, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I don't think he's a good murderer. And then what is he going to He's going to shoot everybody because, and how dumb is that? They're going to catch you. I mean, it's not a very, you're not a very good murderer, in my opinion. Listen to the song that made me make me famous by Kim Dracula. It's got very similar themes. And Jamie said, I guess I always assume it's the privileged white kid. And thank you, Kat and Alex. Thank you again, Eleanor, for being here. And same for me, Kat. I didn't think Wood had it in him. I don't know. I think also too, it was sort of like the reason he only harmed himself or harmed. Well, he was harmed. He was harmed. Who harmed him?
Boo.
Boo did. Okay.
Boo stabbed
Yeah.
him. I
Okay.
want to talk about that. Okay, can I talk about that really quick?
Yeah. Oh, I forgot
Because
about Boo. 66 success rate, getting
so
better.
so here's the thing. I was hanging on because when I read these books, there's like always certain lines that catch me, and I like wait until they pan out at the end. So this was the part I was most disappointed about. So whenever Kane gets hit in the head with the bottle, and Boo's outside his car, his Jeep, and and Kane gets out to go talk to him because he knew Boo from prison. For those of you who didn't read the book, Boo was a guy who he used to be a medical professional. He was a surgeon, I believe, and he ended up getting addicted to drugs and he lost his job. He ended up in prison, and he was in prison at the same time as Kane after
Right.
Kane killed his stepdad. And Boo told Kane because he was instructed to stab Kane and was actually intending to kill him, but he didn't want to. And as a surgeon, he has the ability to stab somebody, knowing where to stab them without killing them,
Right.
because obviously. And so he chose not to kill Kane. He even told him, like, don't struggle and I won't kill you. Well, when they're out, Boo is now on drugs. They're both out of prison. Boo is homeless, and Kane is outside of the car now and is talking to him, is trying to get him to calm down. And Boo makes the comment, does she know? And he's pounding on the Jeep and shouting at the window, does she know what you did? Bet you didn't tell her. Does she know what you did, Abel? So that's referring to the fact that he killed his stepdad, right? But
right.
there's another quote that says, you'll do it again. He paid me to do it again, and I did, below the ribs and towards the spine, which is exactly where he stabbed Whit. And so I was spending this whole book being like, who paid Boo to stab Whit? Who did it? And then there was nothing. There was no payoff for that whatsoever, because it was just that Boo witnessed Whit kill Caroline, was going to blackmail him, stabbed him, for some reason didn't kill him, stabbed him exactly in the same way as Kane, let him live, and then he got murdered in turn. And I'm like, I feel like the author in this case like had some ideas about the ways that she wanted to kind of do some more twists and turns, like somebody paid Boo to stab Whit the same way that he stabbed Kane, and nothing came of that.
Right. Well, that was a good catch. I forgot about that.
I was waiting the whole freaking book. I got so mad about that. So, yeah.
I wonder if the author forgot.
Probably, because they even made a big deal about the fact that, like, well, Kane, you were stabbed in the exact same place as Whit. How did you get yours? And he's like, well, I was stabbed by a man in prison. And then she asked him, well, do you know who stabbed you? And he was like, no, I don't remember. Well, later on, he makes a comment. He says, well, the man who stabbed me is dead. And then we find out that the person who did it was Boo. And it's like, so he knew all along. There was so much that could have happened there. It could have made him look.
But the thing about it is, I'm shocked that Leo didn't catch that discrepancy. Shame on that beta reader.
I'm just saying, like, don't put details like that in me, because who fucking paid Boo? Sorry, who paid Boo?
Who paid Boo? Jamie said, but he figured his mommy would get him out of it. That's what I think. Yeah, Whit did. Are you saying that Whit paid him?
But Whit doesn't mention that.
I thought Whit paid Boo to throw off suspicion.
I didn't remember that being confirmed.
That's interesting.
I wondered about that.
Jamie's saying yes, Jellicle.
Was that what happened?
Maybe Whit paid Boo to stab him. Whit was obsessed, so he could have known about Boo.
Okay, and then I need to go and find that, because I was hoping that something would come of that.
And it says, no, it's that Whit was making things up as he went, whenever things might start pointing at him. And maybe that's why he went back to kill Boo, right? Because...
Well, he gave Boo donuts, remember? Like, he gave him donuts from the donut shop, and he was going to be blackmailed, and then gave Boo money. And then Whit made a comment about how Boo attacked him. And I'm like, well, you wouldn't describe it as an attack if you set it up.
Well, but if he paid him to do it...
that has to be the only explanation of how it could happen. But I was waiting for him to admit that.
But then he ended up having to take out Boo, because I think what he got afraid of, too, is the fact that he knew what happened to Caroline. And also, too, he knew the connection with Boo and Kane. Hey, Matt, going to bed a little early, but I wanted to stop by, like and wish you ladies and chat well. Good night. Thank you, Matt, for popping in. I'm going to have to get a paperback copy to reread and scribble in. And Jamie said he never had a real plan. He was an idiot. Yes, I agree. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's why I don't think he was a good murderer. That's where you can kind of see the differences between Leo, who had it all planned out. I also thought it was really weird about Leo, the beta reader, where he had all the string art with all of the stuff, the details about the thing. I was like, that is kind of creepy. Mm-hmm. So, and then you did talk about that you were not very satisfied with the ending. I think the ending was fine. The ending for me, seemed a little just like, okay, now we're at the end. It was kind of a little bit abrupt, but it kind of, for me, wrapped up and gave me like validation about Leo the neighbor.
That's fair. Yeah. And do you mind if I read this quote
No,
really?
I do not
Because
mind at all.
I was scanning. I was like, I have to find this because I'm not crazy. There was no payoff. It says,
Ah,
um, Marigold has a phone in her hand. Wit is focused on Kane, and I push on. But Sean Jacobs, boo, somehow saw you kill her, and he blackmailed you. Yeah, who knew they let people like him into the library? Despite his bravado, there were tears in Wit's eyes. If it hadn't been for Jacobs and his god awful smell, the security guard might have noticed me and Caroline. As it was, I was able to roll her under that table and simply walk away while they were trying to throw him out. But then he found out where you lived, and he stabbed you. Yeah, he went Batman, decided he needed to get justice for Caroline. That's when I
yeah.
realized I couldn't simply pay him off. So he did not pay Boo to stab him. So I think that the author forgot something and was going to imply that at the end, but that did not happen. So sorry. I just needed to I'm like, I know.
She had to satisfy herself. Yes. Okay, so overall, still sticking with my 4-star
Okay.
rating. Solid for me. You're still sticking to your 3.5. Stina, have you decided on what your rating's going to be, or are you going to get that paperback copy, reread, and scribble before you decide? I don't think anybody else has changed their rating. If so, let us know. It would be interesting, to know. Stina said, at this point, I think I'm at a solid 4. Yay. Awesome. And I want a second book with more of neighbor Leo. I wasn't satisfied with how that ended. Yeah, I think, but as I know, it's a standalone. There's no plans for her to write a sequel, but you just almost wonder if Freddie is going to always have Leo in her life, or if she goes back to Australia, that'll be the end of it.
Yeah.
That could go up or down after a reread. That's true. And this author thanks her editor in the acknowledgments for ensuring her readers would not have to deal with typos. I found 2 typos in the book. I wish I'd flagged them after I read that. Oh, yeah. That would have been good. I didn't catch them. And now I'm feeling your frustration, Alex, sticking with my 3.
Yeah, that's the thing, is there were certain things like Whip being a crappy killer and other things where I'm like, if I had to go, like if I wasn't allowed to have a half rating and I had to do a 3 or a 4, I'd probably do more of a 3. The parts with Leo are really, I think, the areas where this book got saved. And the fact I like Kane.
Yeah.
That's really it.
I did like Kane. Telkana said, I'm gonna up my rating from 3.5 to 4. Yay. And hi, Carmen, joining late, but I finished, and it's a 4 for me. Very nice. Very nice. So again, we only had the 2 DNFs, but we between a 3 and a 4. I mean, I don't think that's bad at all. I gave it a 0, but if you like this, you might like Notes on an Execution by Danya.
I want to read that.
Kukafka.
Kukafka?
Kufkafka. Telling you, I can't pronounce anything, guys. It's making me cuss. Thanks, Zach, for making me cuss.
You know what? I apologize that I cussed.
No, it's okay. I don't think we'll be flagged.
There's always an F-bomb that gets slipped out somewhere when I'm speaking emphatically.
Yes. Oh, I don't want anybody to think that I don't cuss. I do cuss in real life.
Just not on screen.
My internet life, I do not. No, I'm trying to keep PG-13. I don't want to offend anybody with my cussing. Anyway, so that is a wrap on The Women in the Library. Very satisfied with it. Our next book, do you have your copy with you? Because I failed to bring it into my room.
It is A Man Called Uva by Frederick Bachman. And I was told it is Uva and not Ove because I thought it was Ove.
I did. I thought it was Ove also. But yes, it's Uva, and this will be the first Frederick Bachman for both of us.
Yes.
So not sure if any of y'all have read any Bachman. Let us know.
He always has such interesting titles because there's another book that he has.
I've heard wonderful things about his books.
Yeah, because he has
haven't heard anything
Tell Your Grandma I'm Sorry, I think is the title of a book. And I was like, oh, that's great. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, no, no. I'm just like very excited about finally getting to read one of them. It's winter. It's so the setting is going to be pretty good for the winter months. It's our November, December
Yes.
read, and as of right now, our live chat is going to be on Thursday, December the 18th, same time. So, anyway, y'all have plenty of time to get it and read it. If you want to participate in it, we would love for you to join us for that.
Yeah, because otherwise it would have ended up on Christmas. So it's exactly a week before Christmas.
Right, right. So that's why we had to do it. And we did ours early last time for December too, because we were getting into the holiday territory.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Jamie, for being here. We appreciate you saying that. I'm going to give all our chat people love,
Much
love,
love to you all. Thank you.
love,
This was a lot of
love,
fun.
love. Yes, we appreciate that. We love hearing it was a great discussion. Zach set you up. Yeah, that's Zach. All right. Absolutely beautiful. I wasn't expecting that. No, Zach, Zach, Zach. Thank you for a great discussion. Thank you so much, Stina. I appreciate it. Thank y'all for helping us have a great discussion.
Yeah.
Because y'all really had some insightful things to say. I love it. It adds layers to our discussion.
It does.
Stina said this will be her third Bachman. Excellent. I'm looking forward to the next book. It's such a loved book. I've heard so many good things. My first Frederick Bachman, too. Very
Hey.
good. This will be my first Bachman. Very
Woo-hoo.
nice. Looking forward to the next one. Yay. And I have read A Man Called Uve and loved it. Very nice. I like hearing that. And oh my God, I'm reading the Beartown series in December. That's wild.
Awesome.
And then glad I could make this discussion. Looking forward to the next. Well, we're glad you made it also, Jellicle. So thank y'all very, very much. We appreciate all of you. Shout out to my friend Susan who joined us tonight.
Thank you, Susan.
Woo, woo. Let's
Woo-hoo.
see, can we give confetti? Woo, yeah, confetti for Susan for joining us tonight. We appreciate that. And great discussion. I always enjoy you two together. Thank you, Angela. I appreciate that so
Being
very much.
together. So
We love being together. She buddy read the book with me. Excellent. Gold
awesome.
stars for you and Susan.
Yes.
So until next time, we'll see you around. Are you sprinting tomorrow, Alex?
I plan to, yes.
Okay, so Alex, so if anybody wants to catch sprints, most of our friends here know and usually join Alex's sprints, but she'll be sprinting tomorrow, 4:00 p.m. Central Time, 5:00 p.m. Eastern Time, through 2:00. Is it 2:00 Pacific Time?
Yes, because they're
Yes.
3 hours behind. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
You want to put mountain time in there too, Kat? You could
I don't know what the mountain time would be. Honestly, Zach could probably help me out. He lives in Colorado, and that's mountain time.
Mountain time is 2 hours behind me, 1 hour behind you.
Behind me.
Yeah.
So thanks for the invites, Jamie. Well, we're so excited that you joined her for the buddy read, Susan, and hopefully you'll join us again.
Yes.
Night, Telecana. And night, Carmen. Thank you. Good night. Thank you, Susan. And 3 p.m. Mountain. Steen is also Mountain Time. Okay. Okie dokie. Well, we will see y'all soon. Join Alex's Sprints. Colorado represent. That's right. Good night, all. Bye.
Good night. Bye, everybody.